So growing up, my dad was the pastor of a small church. He pastored several small churches when I was growing up. I can remember as a kid going with my dad to the church building on Saturday, sometime during the day, and we were his volunteers to dust the pews and to pick up trash and to just help tidy up before Sunday morning. The church was so small, Dad was the only paid staff person, and so he used his children to help fulfill the roles that were needed as custodians. But I've heard far too often people ask the question, should we just get our volunteers to do that? And so, a couple things that crossed through my mind is, when was the last time you heard a hospital administrator say, hey, I wonder if we should go ahead and just get volunteers to repaint the hospital? Or a grocery store manager saying, hey, let's go ahead and get some volunteers to restack all the shelves for us. Those are probably not things that you've ever heard. And yet we think it's okay to ask for volunteers, people with great hearts, people with great motives that believe in our churches, that believe in what we do. But we're asking them to then come in and do things in a complex commercial building that really should be hired out. So you think about some of the things you would never ask a volunteer to do. You should never ask a volunteer to get up on a ladder that doesn't have proper fall protection. You should never ask a volunteer to get up on a hoist or a lift or something of that nature that hasn't been trained. Remember, churches are still responsible and compliant with OSHA regulations. Would you ever dream of asking a group of volunteers to get up on your steeple and repaint it? Probably not. So as you're thinking about how to use volunteers, and I'm not opposed to volunteers, I just think that there's a place, there's a role, and you need to be very cognizant of what that is. And so think about the items that don't require, number one, skilled labor or someone that needs a license or some kind of liability insurance. Think about things that don't require them getting up on ladders or lifts or even on roofs. What are those things? And so be very cautious, and also make sure you check with your insurance agent that if you're going to use volunteers, that you properly think through what is the insurance that we're going to need. Do we need extra liability insurance? Are we going to have to cover them as workers' comp? And just make sure you do all that properly. It will save you headaches down the road.